Hello, friends. Captain Behnam here with another episode of Date with Destiny. My next guest does not need any introduction. Great Maz Jobrani. He's made people laugh all around the country, all around the world. I am really, really honored to have him with me for the next hour or so. I just wanted to, Maz and I have known each other for a while. And as a matter of fact, he's coming to Sacramento next month. We bought tickets to go see you. And just wanted to get this opportunity to introduce you to rest of the people in my world that love you and enjoy your comedy. And that is really honored to have you, Maz. Thank you for accepting my invitation.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Captain Behnam. I appreciate you, and it's always nice to talk to you. Not only do we have similar hairstyles, but I think we have similar philosophies. So it might be the lack of hair that's led us to take other paths in our lives.
Maybe you never know.
Yeah.
You never know. Well, I have a few questions that people have asked me. If you get Maz on your podcast, ask a few questions. So if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you a few questions. First of all, I know that you started the PhD program. You were doing that, but you made a dramatic pivot from pursuing your PhD to become a comedian. Do you think that was your destiny, that you said to yourself, this is it, I have to do this?
Yeah, it wasn't like it just came to me in one day. I started doing plays when I was 12 years old. I did musicals in junior high school. I was a big fan of Eddie Murphy and Saturday Night Live and comedy from the time I was 10 years old.
Okay.
And I always wanted to do something on stage. And every time I would do a play, the director or the teacher would say, "Hey, you got the bug. You have what it takes." And of course, having immigrant Iranian parents, they would say, "Don't listen to her; she's crazy." And it was a lot of back and forth, and eventually, I just was trying to kind of follow my parents' advice. Originally, they said be a lawyer, so I was like, "Well, maybe I should just be a lawyer." Then,
a lawyer, huh? Not a doctor.
No,
I thought if you fail to be a doctor, that's a second chance. It's okay to be a lawyer.
Yeah, no, they knew I was never going to be a doctor. I was not a doctor type. But the lawyer felt to them like, oh, that's a good path that'll be secure and you'll have a good life and you can, live your life. So that's what they were encouraging me to do. And then when I was in undergrad, for my junior year, I went to Italy for a year. I studied abroad. Mm-hmm. And there was a professor there and he was just great. And I thought, you know what, maybe I'll be a professor. That way my parents will still be happy and I'll get to stand in front of people and teach. And I thought that would be cool. So that's when I got into that PhD program. But once you get into a PhD program, you realize your job is not to teach, but rather they say publish or perish. And so I thought, oh, that's not what I want to do. And meanwhile, I was doing plays at UCLA when I was in that grad school program. And I dropped out the first year. I didn't even last the year. But it was something that had been, nibbling away at me for a long time, and I had to make that decision, and I got the hell out.
How many years ago was that when you made that decision?
It was 90. I believe it was 94. So the school year of 94, from the fall of 94 to the spring of 95, mm-hmm. I stayed at UCLA to do 2 plays. I stayed in the PhD program, but I was doing plays in the theater program. And I just got a bunch of fails on my tests and stuff. I didn't do anything. I was just in to be able to do the acting. And then by the spring of 95, I dropped out and got a job in advertising, which to me was, again, another baby step towards getting into some sort of creative field. Uh-huh. And then I worked in advertising for several years. And it wasn't until I think it was like maybe 98 or 99 or so when I finally thought, you know what? You live once. I better, really get serious about this. So I enrolled in some improv comedy classes, and then I enrolled in stand-up comedy classes, and I haven't looked back since.
That's awesome. Well, growing up as an Iranian American in the U.S., how did your background shape your uh, comedy voice or being on the stage? How did that come together?
Well, that was a big part of it. Like when I took that comedy class, they said talk about what makes you unique, and then they also said have an opinion about it. So the teacher would have these phrases that you would complete. You would say it's hard being, and then fill out the rest.
The
It's
blank, yeah.
crazy being, whatever. And so it's hard being you. What are you? I was born in Iran. Oh, it's okay. It's hard being Iranian in America. Get more specific. It's hard growing up Iranian in America. Okay, let's write a joke about that. What's the joke? Oh gosh, the joke is okay because of the crisis, the hostage crisis. Maybe when I was a kid, the parents of the other kids didn't want their kids spending the night at our house because they thought they were going to take their kid hostage. And then you build on that, right? So you're playing with those tropes and those stereotypes and stuff. But when I started like 26 years ago, there weren't other Middle East, like there was only a couple other Middle Eastern comedians. And so it was new to me. And I was new to the whole industry because again, they
Yeah.
didn't have, there was just Omid Jalili in England. And then there was me over here.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, I would talk a lot about my Iranian background, my Iranian parents. And then eventually I started saying my immigrant background and my immigrant parents, because I realized that Iranians and Indians and Chinese and Russians and Mexicans, we all have so much in common when you start going down that path of immigrant parents.
Yeah. What was the hardest part breaking into this, especially post 9/11?
The hardest part might have been what you just said. When I first started out, there just wasn't as much of an eye on non-stereotypical parts. So early
Uh-huh.
on, it was like, oh, here's a part where you're a terrorist. Here's another part where you're an Iraqi in the war. It was all that. And now it's kind of cool for me to look up and see brown people from all different backgrounds with shows that have nothing to do with that stuff. So you have, like, for example, my friend Mo Amer, who's Palestinian. He's got a show called Mo on Netflix, and it's a great show. There's also Rami Youssef, who's another friend. He's Egyptian. He's got his show on Hulu. Another friend, Asif Ali, who I believe is Indian, or is he Pakistani? I think he's Indian. But his show is called Deli Boys on Hulu. So all these shows they don't play in those stereotypes that we had to play in.
Uh-huh.
So that was the hardest thing to get through. And I'm happy to see that as an industry and as a world, people have come up with other creative ways and roles for people like you and me.
Yeah, I have a friend. He has a great sense of humor, and he says post 9/11, he was always randomly selected through TSA,
Whoa.
randomly all the time selected through going through TSA because
Well, I would have the opposite experience because I fit the profile. I was like, they said the profile is like 18 to whatever it was, 30 at the time.
yes.
Male, Middle Eastern, this, that, the other. I fit the profile, and they would not stop me, and that would worry me. I was like, if I'm getting through, then the real guy might be getting through too. So I was like, you need to check me, man.
Well, a lot of those bad guys did get through. I have no idea how did that happen. They
Yeah,
probably have big balls in order to go
yeah,
through security and make it to the other end.
yeah.
When did you first feel, okay, I made it? This is it.
When
I'm a
I was on the
comedian. Was
Captain
it a
Behnam,
specific show, a big break, or was it something more personal that to you said that, you know what, I made it?
when I was on the Captain Behnam podcast, that's when I realized I'd made it. قابل
That's a
نداره،
good
قابل
one.
نداره.
That's a good one.
No, I always tell people it's a series of making it. Like, you don't just make it once. It's like you got to keep making it, and you see baby steps in and you do what you love doing. And what I love doing is doing stand-up comedy. I love acting. And so I'm at the comedy clubs in the middle of, at 1 a.m, telling jokes in front of 3 people. I'm at a coffee shop telling jokes in front of, people that don't speak English. I'm at a youth hostel. I did it one time. I did it at a youth hostel, like 10 minutes in. I go, who speaks English? Like, one guy raised his hand. The rest were all traveling. So you do
Well,
that,
you
you
were
do that,
having
you do
fun.
that. Yeah. And eventually you get good at it. And then eventually, I say it's kind of like boxing, like you're training, right? You're hitting the bag. And then eventually somebody takes you and they put you into the big leagues, and you look up and you're like, oh my God, I'm in the big leagues. and you play with that, and then you go back to training. So, for example, when I did the movie The Interpreter, which was a Sidney Pollack directed movie, and it had Nicole Kidman and Sean Penn, I had
Mhm.
scenes, and Catherine Keener as well. I had scenes with Sean Penn, whom I had looked up to as an actor before, and now I'm working with him, and I'm like, oh my God, mind blown, right? So there was moments like that. There was the first sitcom I ended up on was a sitcom on Fox called Life on a Stick, which
Okay.
was a a show about a bunch of teenagers working at like a hot dog on a stick place, and I was their Middle Eastern manager of the place, or owner of the place. But it was great because that had been written to be one episode, and because they liked the character, they brought me back for the whole season. So all of a sudden, I was like, "Oh, I'm a regular on a TV show." So that felt
Oh,
great.
that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
or like when
awesome.
we had the Axis of Evil comedy special come out on Comedy Central in 2007, I thought, oh, wow, this is great. And that really elevated us. All of a sudden, our names were known. Like people knew Maz Jobrani. They knew my joke I used to do about I'm Persian, like the cat, meow. And so all of that started happening there.
Yeah.
So it's constant steps. Like I did, I just posted this on my Instagram. I got a chance to introduce Michelle Obama at the White House in 2016 for the No
Yes.
Roots. And to me, I was like, whoa, that's another made it moment.
Yeah.
I got to
I mean,
film
how
my
did that
comedy.
feel to go to the White House and
It
be
was great.
talking to
I'll
the
be honest with
president
you.
and the first lady?
Yeah, listen, it was amazing. And I'll be honest with you, I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, whatever. It's a proud moment when any administration
Oh,
invites
absolutely.
your people to celebrate their holiday at the
Hmm.
White House. And at the time, I remember that the Obamas, and I don't know if other presidents have done this, but the Obamas would have celebrations of all the different communities. They would all come, like, the Greeks would come and celebrate. Then there was the Arabs would come and celebrate, and whatever. They just had all these different celebrations to show that, hey, that we're all part of
Human
America.
race. Yeah.
So it was really cool. So again, there's a lot of moments that you feel like are the moments that you go, okay, this is it, you just got to keep going.
Yeah. Talking about Axis is Evil, as a Middle Eastern comedian, looking back, what impact do you think that had on the comedy industry?
Well, it was me and Ahmed who's Egyptian, and Aaron Cater who's Palestinian, and Sam Tripoli who's Armenian, and we were all at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles, and Mitzi Shore, who was the owner of the Comedy Store, this older Jewish lady, she had an idea that there was going to be a need for positive voice for Muslims and Middle Easterners in the near future. And this is before 9/11. So she put us on a show, and she called the show The Arabian Nights. And it was funny because Iranians would come and say, "Oh, I really enjoyed the show, but we are not Arab." And I was like, "I know, I didn't name the show. The Jewish lady named the show." And I was like, "By the way, we look the same. Once they start deporting us, we're all going. The only difference is the Arabs are Muhammad, we're Mamad. It's just the same thing." Anyway, that then turned into the Axis of Evil comedy show, and that was after September 11th. And it was interesting because of what happened to September 11th, obviously the stereotypes and the racism against Muslims and people from that part of the world became accentuated and became more. And so it was interesting for, I think, a lot of Americans and American media to find these comedians who happen to be from the Middle East
Hmm.
originally. But we'd been doing stand-up comedy, for a few years at that point. And so we started getting a lot of press, and people would say, what do you talk about? How do you talk about this? What are you doing? And really the truth was like, hey, I'm just trying to be funny. And there was a lot of stuff to make fun of in the news.
Yeah.
And then there's also a lot of personal stuff you make fun of. So I think that gave us a lot of fodder and material to play with. And unfortunately, it's like that material still seems to be applicable to an extent today. So, but as a comedian, you evolve and you go away from just doing a stereotypical joke to building a bigger story that you're telling.
Mhm. Well, tell me about your book. I'm not a terrorist, but I play one. I love that, but I play one. So
Yeah, the
was that
title.
created any problem for the Middle Easterns actors? It was that an uphill battle or what?
Yeah, Well, the joke there was, there used to be these commercials where the guy would come on and say, "I'm not a doctor, but I've played one on TV," and then they would give you advice on
Exactly.
whatever, Tylenol or something. So the joke was, "I'm not a terrorist, but I've played one on TV," and um, that was based on my first experience playing a terrorist part, which was in a Chuck Norris movie of the week. And it was just silly and it was stupid. And in my mind, I thought that maybe through my acting, I can show why this guy's doing what he's doing. But the people at the Chuck Norris movie didn't want to hear any of it. They were like, just put on the turban and just like scream a little bit. So I was like, all right. So I did it. And then I felt like, I don't like this. I don't want to do this anymore. So I came back and I told my agents, I said, listen, I don't want to go out for any more terrorist parts. And then the TV show 24 at the time was a hot show.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
Yes.
with
Yes.
Kiefer Sutherland.
Uh-huh.
And so they got in touch and they said, listen,
We
and they
need
were very,
another terrorist. We short
yeah,
one.
yeah, they were very secretive about their plot lines and their parts. So they said, we have a part we want to offer you. We can't tell you what it is. And then eventually I found out it's the part of a terrorist, but he changes his mind halfway through the mission. And I said, oh, the ambivalent terrorist. Okay, I can do that. And that was the last time I played a terrorist on any film or TV program.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Uh, what's the most powerful reaction to your comedy, either from an audience member or a family member or someone in the industry?
What you do is it's funny because we just put it out there.
Uh-huh.
I assume it's kind of like a painter who paints a painting. He or she has an idea of what it is, and maybe there's a story behind it, but then
Uh-huh.
people interpret it in their own ways. So for me, I'm always shocked or surprised by people's reactions to certain jokes. And what's funny is actually now that we have social media, I've been talking about this on stage. Back in the day, we'd do a show live in front of an audience. Most of
Uh-huh.
them would enjoy it. Some might not. Some of them might get up and leave, or some might like after the show tell their friend, oh, I didn't like it, whatever, we move on. But now because of social media, you put it online and the whole world is commenting on it. And what's crazy is the same clip will get, like, if you're looking at the comments, someone will say, oh my God, this is the funniest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And the next person says, this guy sucks. He's the worst guy ever. So you realize you can't base your jokes or material or your art on what other people think, because there's no way to figure out what that is. So ultimately, you got to do what's funny to you. You got to do what you're having
You got
fun
to
with.
do you.
You got to do you. And that's it.
Yeah.
And people will like reach out and say, oh, whatever, that joke was too racy, or I didn't like that joke. All right, well, that's fine. You should do your own jokes. This is who I am. So
Has
that's
it
it.
ever been like something you said on the stage and you come off the stage and, oh shit, what did I just do? Or what did I say?
It wasn't so much that. I've said things on stage. You try stuff that you think is funny, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I had a joke. This was like in this day and age, the joke would probably be considered to be politically incorrect. But the joke was based on, so living in Los Angeles, and I'm sure in other cities in America, everyone knows if you need people to come work, like at the house, like, handyman or whatever, nailing hammers or doing some gardening work or whatever, you can pull up to like Home Depot or one of those places, and there's usually Latino men who are waiting to be hired for the day.
Yep,
And
we have it up
so,
here at Home Depot. Yep, I
yeah,
know
that's part of
exactly what
that's
you
part of the
mean.
culture. Yeah. And so when I first moved to Los Angeles in 1993, 94, I worked at a stationery store where there was photocopies, stationaries, and we would pass out flyers to promote the store. So the owner of the place, who happened to be a Persian guy named Sasha, he would hire some of these guys to come and pass out flyers for him. And in 1994, those guys would work at like $5 an hour or something. It was like very little, and they're just passing out flyers.
Flyers,
So
yeah.
flash forward to whatever it was, like the year 2002 or something, and my then girlfriend, now wife, was moving, and it was just in one studio apartment. So I said, hey, I'll do the moving. I'll just go get a U-Haul truck, and then I'll go to Home Depot. I'll get a couple guys to come help. We'll get it done. So I went to get the guys, and they jumped in the car, and I'm like, okay, guys, we're moving, and it's going to be, I'll pay you whatever. At that point, I thought, okay, I'll pay you $7 an hour. And they were like, no, no, no. I go, okay, 10. They're no, no, no. I go, how much? They go, 20 an hour. I go, 20 an hour? I go, holy moly. So, we got them. They helped us, all that. And then the joke I came up with, which again, I think would be politically incorrect now, is I would say, I was like, guys, my girlfriend was moving, and I said, I'll help you move. So I went and did this. I went and get a couple of Latino guys to help me move. And I'll tell you what, not only has the price of gas gone up, so is the price of Mexicans. And that was the joke. Now, again, that's politically incorrect. And at the time, I think I did it once or twice at like a comedy club with like white fans, and it got some laughs. Then one night I was doing it in another comedy club, and there was these Latino, it looked like Mexican, like tough Mexican dudes sitting in the front row.
Can't wait to hear this.
And the show was going great. They were laughing. We were having a good time, laughing, having a good time. And then I tried that joke, and it was like a record scratch. I could feel like they kind of looked up at me like, what did you just say, fool? And I didn't miss a beat, like without even giving them a second to breathe. I was like, but you know what? Being Iranian really sucks. And I would put it right back on myself, and they passed it. And I was like, I can't do that joke, man.
That's funny. That reminds me, I do a lot of sailing. I love to sail, sailboats, and got a little sailboat in San Francisco. And every time we barbecue or eat something, what is left over, I throw it in the sea, not as garbage, no plastic bags or cups, but food, because it's food for sea lions or animals or whatever, or sea mammals, whatever. So one time we had, I was with a girlfriend and her kids, 2 daughters, on the boat, and I had some Dorito chips. So Dorito chips, and like take the big pieces and you eat it, and the little parts that is just not edible. So I start throwing it overboard, and she says, the baby says, Ella says, don't do that. That just don't do that. Don't throw stuff in the ocean. Or I said, well, there might be some Mexican fish, because it was Dorito.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, they like Doritos.
And she said, I cannot believe you said that. That's just a joke.
Funny.
We have so many jokes about Persians and, different people. Yeah, it's just a joke.
Yeah.
Well, listen, obviously, about my incident, when the engine blew up and we ended up saving 381 people. That was my date with destiny. That was an emergency I had at 36,000 feet. And my crew and I did a good job, and we saved 381 souls, landed the aircraft safely. Nobody even broke a fingernail. And as you see these days, the last 2-3 months, so many aircraft crashes and people perish. People are beginning to realize what we did then was such an amazing thing, that 381 souls are walking on this earth. Some of them got married, they got grandchildren and all of that. It's been really, really fulfilling. So that was my date with destiny. Has there been a moment in your career that everything that you have worked for, all your experiences led you to have a defining moment?
I mean, I've never had to land an airplane.
You see what? I never want to do that again. And somebody asked me, Captain Behnam, if you were to do it again, what would it be like? I said, you know what? I would do it in VFR condition, meaning be able to see outside, not be in the clouds, just as a joke. It's just an aviation joke. It's not very funny, but.
Well, I always say, like, what I do is, sometimes people say, oh, you're very nice and you take pictures with your fans and all that. I go, because what I do is I love what I do. And I'm not like saving lives. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a pilot. I'm none of that stuff. And so I know that the level of risk and the level of reward is not as high as what somebody like you actually saving lives. So there's that. But in my life, listen, I tell all people, comedians, I say, get on stage as much as you can, write as much as you can, because that will all come in handy and useful as you perform And so there are many moments where I've been at, let's say, I don't know, a corporate event or something, where corporate events are really hard because it's like they're there just to have the chicken. They don't know who you are. One person at the corporation is a fan, so they hired you to come perform. And
Yeah.
now you're in front of people after they've auctioned and they've drank and they're tired, and you got to go up and make them laugh. So that's where I've had moments where my experience has come in and I've said, okay, I'm going to work on that experience, use that experience to get these people going. So it's, again, the stakes are a lot lower than saving lives. It's more about like surviving myself on stage and getting through the event. I'm trying to think if there's been anything else where I felt like, oh wow, all this time and effort has come to a head like that. I just, again, I just feel like, Muhammad Ali used to do the rope-a-dope, right? So it's like, as a comedian, you learn sometimes to do the rope-a-dope and just get through it. And again, we're not saving lives; we're just trying to make people laugh.
Mm.
And once in a while, by the way, you do have people come up to you after the show and say things like, even just this past weekend, I was in Salt Lake City, and some kid came over after the show. When I say kid, like probably like in his mid-20s or late 20s, and he didn't tell me what was happening, but he said, "Hey, thank you for, doing the show. I needed this laugh. I've had like the worst 3 weeks of my life." And
Mm.
again, I didn't get into details about what it was, but I thought, oh, hey man, if I can, be part of that relief, then that's great. You give the guy a hug. And so sometimes I think that's what we do. Our job is, you're saving souls. We are just helping people cope with some of the difficulties of life.
Yeah. This Have you ever doubted yourself? Being a comedian, have you ever doubted that if you're on a right path, or if there was any uncertainty, and how did you push through it? Do you prep for these things even at your level, that being a super comedian? Do you still think about your audience, and do you prepare yourself to go in? Do you still write, or does it just come to you naturally?
I never doubt myself. No, of course, we all doubt ourselves. You have moments. Listen, I am lucky to be able to do what I love doing. And I was old enough. I was 26 when I decided to really go for it. And so I think I was mature enough to appreciate it. And
Mm-hmm.
so even when I was getting up at 1:45 a.m. when the club was closing at 2 a.m. and I had two people in the audience, I was still giddy. I was happy because, as you know, when you do what you love, then
Yeah.
it's not really hard work. Because I tried a few different things, and there's politics in every field that you choose. But
Yep.
that's why you should choose the field that you love, because then you're willing to put up with the politics. So I didn't mind waiting. Like, they would say, listen, you're on at whatever, 12 o'clock at midnight. And so I'd show up to be up at 12 at midnight, and a famous comedian would come in and say, I want to go up now. So then you have to sit there and watch them for an hour. Then another person would show up, another hour. And basically, like I said, you'd be the last guy getting up. But I loved it. And I just was like, there's no doubt I'm going to come back again tomorrow. So that's constant. Now, in terms of preparation, depends again on the show, right? If I'm doing my own show, which is the show that I tour with, which is the one I'll be in Sacramento with, that's a show that I've been doing for the past year and a half. So I've gotten good at telling that story, going from A to B to C, and then every once in a while doing crowd work and talking to the crowd, and then going back to my story. Those, because you're on tour and doing it all the time, there's not a lot of preparation. There's just like if you haven't, you just got to remind yourself, okay, that goes there, I got it. But again, when you do other events that you're hired to do, corporate events or, celebrations of some sort, those you have to do a lot of preparation. Because I always tell people, when you do a show, I did a show for a gentleman who was retiring. It was his semi-retirement party. And it was a lot of fun because, first of all, he was fun. His wife was fun. Their friends were fun. But what also happened was I was able to go in a day early and go to dinner with him and some of his friends and just pick up little pieces about everybody. So that
Mm-hmm.
night when I went to perform, I was able to say, this guy said that guy did that. And they're having a great time because I'm making it about them. So that
Right.
requires a lot of work where it's not your show, it's their show.
I see. Yeah. You were saying about, if there's something that you actually love, it's so easy to do. I always tell people, I mean, I was very fortunate with a lot of hard work to get hired by the best airline in the world at the time, United. And, they paid me a good salary, but I would have done it for free because I loved it so much.
Yeah.
And beside that, I love this areas of motivation and helping younger generations set goals, have dreams, showing them a path and tools, give them the tools how to get to be quote unquote successful or reach their goals and dreams. And that is my passion. So going around, I don't tell people I'm a retired United pilot. I say I'm a keynote speaker and a motivational speaker. That's my passion that I've carried with me for 30 years.
Yeah, you're
There were a
paying.
couple of pilots that been on the stage talking and they're as dry as a doorknob. And I go up there, I'm really animated. I just did a few months ago a keynote speech for General Electric, 20,000 people. I don't get nervous. I just love it, because I'm sharing what is my passion, what is my life story, and how can they use all of that in their whatever they're doing, whether it's safety or running an organization or they have deadlines they have to meet, zero mistakes and be right on it. Or if I'm talking to a kid, like no drugs, no alcohol, put that aside, focus on your dream because you can you have all the tools to get whatever you want out of this life, Maz.
Yeah.
It's just your why and the how. That's always said. If your why is big enough, the how will show.
Yeah.
And your why was big enough. This is your passion. You want to do it. The how was always around us.
Yeah. No, you pay it forward, and that's admirable, definitely.
Yeah. Well, you've done stand-up comedy, TV, movies, and even voice acting. Which one of this has been most fulfilling for you?
Well, stand-up comedy is the most fulfilling because it's immediate response. You do the jokes, they laugh. You talk to them, they laugh. To me, it's the easiest form of performing and getting the reaction right then and there.
Mm-hmm.
But the other stuff's all fun too. Voice acting is very fun because you get to get in there and especially if you're doing animation, you get to fool around, mess around, have fun. You get to be whatever, some creature you would never be in based on your looks, but you get to play these different characters because you can do the voices. And then of course acting is, again, it's there's some fun parts and it also depends on like if sometimes you get a chance to work with people that you admire. And yeah, it's just fun. It's fun. We did a thing. This was an interesting one. There was a guy who had written a short film. So Stephen King, I guess, has a thing where he puts out a contest and he says, you can take my short stories and adapt them, submit your version, and I will, if I approve it, I will sell you the rights to make that short film for $1. And you go do the short film. So some guys out of Canada actually had done an adaptation of a short story written by Stephen King about Sherlock Holmes and Watson. And they had adapted it to an Iranian cast. And they had me playing Sherlock Holmes. And it was a lot of fun. And I got to play this like inspector and in a fun way. And the words, like it was all Farsi. So my Farsi is good, but it's not the level that it needed to be. So they were just giving me stuff phonetically and I was memorizing it and doing it. And it was fun. It's always fun, man.
Is it hard to memorize when you're acting? I mean, let's say an English.
Not that hard. It's not that hard. Hopefully you have time. Like if you're doing a film or you have a TV show, usually you have the time. There was a movie I wrote and with my friend Amir Ohebsian. It was called Jimmy Westwood, American Hero. It was a silly movie. It's like my ode to the Pink Panther of Peter Sellers, Inspector Clouseau. And that one, because I was the star, I was in every scene almost. And so there was a lot more to learn, the lines. But what you do is the night before, you go over it. And then when you get on set, you rehearse a couple times. And once you really give yourself the chance, the freedom to kind of like not have to specifically hit every specific word, that then makes it even easier because you're lowering the pressure on yourself.
Right.
But sometimes
that's
you have
the one
writer,
that you took over the narrative yourself, right?
Well, it's more
instead
like
of waiting for Hollywood to get it right. I mean, you just
That was me just having fun for myself. But sometimes you'll end up like on a show where the writers are very specific and they say, we want to hear all these words exactly as written. And so that's where rehearsal comes in, and you got to nail it. But a lot of times on movies, especially, the director will say, hey, get like 90% of the words, but if you don't get that last 10%, as long as you get the feeling and the emotion, or if you want to improvise something in there, go for it. So they want that.
So what is it with your audience with their W's and V's and S's? It's
I
like
don't know.
Jimmy
It's
best food,
funny.
and the guy says it like that, but I'm not Persian. I'm not
Yeah.
Iranian.
There's different, I've heard like Indians have their thing, like Arabs, for example, can't do peas, some Arabs. So Pepsi becomes
Tell us
Pepsi,
some.
Pepsi, right?
Uh-huh.
Latinos sometimes have trouble with some letters. I don't know. It's, obviously it's the accent, right? So for us, it's very much like Westwood instead of Westwood. Um,
The
uh,
window.
yeah. And also we don't have consonants back to back, like two consonants back to back. So like the name Steve, as you know, becomes Steve, right? Or
Or S
traffic becomes Terafik, because we don't do traffic. We don't do Steve. So yeah. Gangster
I
becomes
love
gongester. Gongester.
it. Once in a while I'll be in the crowd and just somebody comes to you and starts talking just like that. And I'm like
Yeah.
really holding back from
Yeah.
not laughing because it is so funny.
Yeah.
Well, comedy has changed a lot, and especially with social media and the new culture. How do you navigate through all of that, being a comedian?
I
What
think
has
that,
changed in your field and for you?
well, the main thing that's changed is that we're on social media now and getting judged by the whole world. And so you can't put too much um, emphasis on people's reactions to your jokes,
Yeah,
because some are going to like it, some aren't. So you just got to keep going.
yeah,
And then in terms of like, some comedians will say, oh, cancel culture, this, that. I go, no, I said that the world evolves.
yeah,
You either evolve with it or you become a dinosaur. So
yeah.
if there's certain words that were used 10, 20, 30 years ago, and this younger generation says, we don't use those words, it's your choice. You could be the curmudgeon old guy who goes, well, I want to use that word, and I'm going to use that word. Well, you're not going to have that many younger fans. But if you are able to adapt and go, oh, I see why that word was hurtful, and I'm going to evolve and write material that's above this.
Hmm.
I personally think that's the way to go, is you got to adapt. And so for me, like my comedy always is inspired by what's going on in my life and what's going on in the world. And so if you
Hmm.
look at like one of my earlier comedy specials called Brown and Friendly, I have jokes about having our firstborn son and how he was a baby and all that stuff. Now, as you watch the other specials, I tell stories of how the kids have gotten older and older and older. And like now, for example, I'm doing a joke about teaching my son to drive. So he's now 16. So because of that, I'm able to continue to find the comedy in my life because I'm
Hmm.
evolving with it, rather than being lazy and saying, I'm just going to keep doing jokes from 20 years ago. That's very important. I think you have to evolve. You got to keep writing. And so that's what I try to do.
Well, I'm sure, obviously, you, like me, must have loved the Robin Williams. I mean, he made the whole world laugh. I cried so much when he took his own life. As a matter of fact, he was living in Marin County, and that's where my boat is, and that's where I spend a lot of my time. And what do you think? What happened? What could someone that we think has everything and is so funny and so full of life? What happens that something?
Well, they said it was Lewy body dementia, which was something that was happening to him psychologically and mentally. And so I think, listen, we know in the real world, there are many mental health issues, whether it's depression or bipolar disorder or whatever, something like this. And, you know, the difference is, when you're an accountant, you go to work and people might say, oh, he was nice and things were fine. And then, the guy for some reason takes his life. You go, oh, he had this issue he was battling and that's what happened.
Mm,
When you're a comedian, the persona is to be happy and funny and in front of people, always be funny and always, bring light. And so it shocks our system when somebody who was supposed to be that ends up doing what he did. Or, and we saw it, for example, in other forms, like when Richard Pryor had Parkinson's, this guy whose whole life was based on the gift of gab and being funny and being on top of it, all of a sudden is not capable of expressing that. So it's a cruel irony of life that we see things like that happen. And so, yeah, it was very sad. And you just never know. You never know. And we don't know, knock on wood, if your health is so important. And so when I see those around me, sometimes, things happening to them, and it just breaks my heart. And I go, oh my gosh, I'm so lucky to have what I have. And so you just got to appreciate what you have and hope that you will continue to have it until, late in life.
Yeah, it's so funny you say the health is so important, because unfortunately I've had two very close family members that I'm 65 and 67, they're dead. They're dead because they didn't take care of themselves, and something that had happened a long time ago, they didn't pay attention to it. Even the doctor says you need to do something. They say, oh, no, I'm macho guy, I'm fine, I'm healthy, I got the money, I got good health now. They say, yeah, but like my brother-in-law, by the time they went to him and said that you got 3 months left, they said, what? Till about a week prior his death, he refused to believe it, and he was functioning perfectly fine. And all of a sudden, the last week, boom, just was gone, as the doctor said, because he did not take care of the problem that they told him he has in 2019. And by April of 2024, he was gone.
Wow.
And it's sad. So the health is really important. And, I always tell people that don't sweat the small stuff. Everything in your life is a small stuff. It really is. And one time a person would say, Captain Behnam, you're always positive, so full of energy. Have you never been depressed? I said, yeah, I tried it once. I didn't like it. So I don't become depressed anymore.
Yeah.
I try to be funny sometimes, but it doesn't work all the times. Just sometimes. Makes me laugh. That's good. Maz, do you think there are opportunities for Iranians to new generation or Middle Eastern guys or girls to get into comedy going forward?
Oh, of course. Yeah. No, the world has changed a lot. There's a lot of comedians now from our backgrounds. You got Max Amini, Amir K, Tehran, Omid Singh, Melissa Shoshahi. You got a lot of people every day coming into the game. It's beautiful to see. It's beautiful to see. And my hope is that those young people will continue to advance and create and, get us to a point where we have a little more normalization of our image in the public eye. And we have some fun programs that people see from people from different backgrounds all get to see. So, yeah, I think it's a no-brainer now. And I think a lot of parents now, counter to what my parents were, I think a lot of parents are a lot more supportive because they see that you can do well and succeed in this field. And now there's social media and people are making, these kids are making money just posting videos. So,
right.
Yeah, there's a lot of room and a lot of potential.
And maybe something for a podcast too. Who knows?
Yeah.
We're hoping.
Yeah.
What life lessons has comedy taught you that you wish other people could understand, or more people understand it?
I mean, I think it's very simple. The first thing that it taught me was that you live once and you should go for what you love to do. So I was in my mid-20s and I was trying to save up some money. And my idea was when I'm 30, maybe I'll go for it. And there was a gentleman at this ad agency I worked at. His name was Joe Ryan, and he was in his 60s at the time. And he was a very nice guy, very complimentary. As a matter of fact, I dedicate my book to him because he sat me down and he's like, hey, you're funny. Have you thought about doing this? And I said, Joe, I'm going to save money. And when I'm in my 30s, I'm going to go for it. He goes, listen, I'm in my 60s. There were some things I wanted to do back in my 20s and I never did it. He goes, if you really want to do it, you should do it. And it was a light bulb moment and I went for it. So I tell everybody, I go, don't wait, whether it's learning the piano or a guitar or the language or traveling or career or whatever, go for it. You live once. So that's the first big lesson. And then the second lesson that I try to remind people is it's going to take time and effort. And so you better find what you love doing. You really got to put in the time. You really got to put in the effort, whatever it is that you're going to do, and hopefully you'll see the results on the other side.
Now that is really, really important, and that is my passion. That is always my message to people. You know, when I do my motivation stuff, it's not like how to become a pilot. Obviously, everybody thinks flying those big jets is sexy, this and that. But I just say whatever it is, if you want to be a cook, go become the best cook there is, as long as you enjoy it. If you want to work on the construction site, you can just make it as high as you can. Just don't set your goals low. Just have goals that are achievable, number one, simple ones, and then add to it and add to it and add to it. Just keep moving forward. Just don't, like the old saying, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. Whenever you take that first step is the beginning of the journey of that 1,000 miles.
Yeah.
Just, having aspiration, having goals. And you know what? Somebody told me this. I can't remember who it was, but one of these seminars that I've taken, the question was like, if you ask somebody, a child, for example, what do you want to do when you grow up? 90% of the times, I don't know. Because maybe a lot of people don't. But the person says, ask this question a different way. What would it be if you did know? What would it be if you did know what you wanted to do when you grow up? I said, in that case, I want to be a firefighter. I want to be a cop. I want to be a policeman, or I want to be a detective, or I want to be a pilot. And I have done that with my own kids.
Mm-hmm.
I feel absolutely blessed that all my 4 kids are doing exactly what they want to do out of life. They get out of life and do.
Yeah.
The oldest one is a pilot. The second oldest son is a doctor, becoming a doctor. And the 2 daughters, one is an attorney and one is a marine biologist. By the time they were 13 years old, by me talking to them and feeding them positive stuff, keep asking this question, what would it be? What would you want to do when you grow up? And they didn't know what it is. So what would it be? Every single one of them said exactly those things that they're doing right now. So I feel extremely, extremely blessed that they're doing something that they love. And hopefully they'll be happy doing it and, make good money and good income for themselves and good future.
That's great parenting.
Well, that's another thing. You become a parent, but there is nobody gives you a manual. How do you be a parent 101?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no owner's manual for it.
No.
And I always tell people, you can't teach what you don't know.
Yeah.
So you have to go learn it yourself.
Yeah.
And look around you, the examples that are around you. If that's not good enough, you need to hit the books. And I really am absolutely, I said leaders are readers.
Yeah.
If you want to lead even your own family, you need to learn more about it. As even we speak today, I'm constantly feeding my head with good podcasts about my health, about everything, whether it's a mind, body, soul, relationship. Keep getting more information in because it's constantly changing. You said something interesting that the things have changed. And sometimes when I sit down and listen to kids, younger generation that 20, 30 years younger than us, and a conversation over dinner, the stuff they talk about and laugh, I don't get it.
Yeah.
I just don't get it. It's totally different language.
Yeah.
We sit down and listen to them and it's like they start laughing. And I'm like, did you get what they just said? Nope, I didn't. It's totally different vibration, totally different thing. Well,
that's the world. The world evolves and we, like I said, we got to either adapt and evolve or we become dinosaurs. Now, that said, obviously with comedy and music and all that other stuff, you can continue to enjoy. So you don't have to enjoy the younger stuff. That's been forever. But I try to keep an open mind. My daughter loves music, and she recently wanted to go to a concert of this one act called Tyler, the Creator. And I didn't know him that well, but he just put out an album, and his lyrics are really good. And he when he put out his album, he said, I want people to listen to it from beginning to end. Don't listen a little bit, just start from A to Z. So I happened to be on tour in Switzerland. I was in, I think we were in Lucerne, or where were we? Zurich, maybe. And I was walking the streets looking for breakfast, and I just had the headphones on. I was listening, and I thought, oh wow, this is really good. So I went with my daughter to the concert, and it was great. So sometimes we try their world and see if we can enjoy it. And I did in that case. You don't always, but I did.
Yeah, yeah. Well, for young comics trying to break into this business, especially from a migrant background, what are your advice that you like to give them?
Well, my advice to anybody that wants to do comedy is get on stage as much as you can and write as much as you can. And that's it. You got to get on stage 5, 10 times a week, find open mics in your town. Just go anytime, anywhere there's a place for you to perform, go perform, and just keep doing that like 5 to 10 times a week, and keep writing and keep going. And eventually after, 4 or 5 years, you'll start to see some results.
That's it. 4 or 5 years is not the overnight thing, is it?
No.
No. There is no, what they call it. You
Overnight
got to pay
success.
a price for success, right?
Yeah. You pay your dues.
Yeah, you got to pay your dues. There's no
Yeah.
free lunch or something for free. You
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
got to work hard at it.
Yeah.
Work hard at it. Now, with everything changing in the politics in the world, do you keep up with everything? You just always dig out for more information and more.
Sometimes, the politics are so crazy right now. It's really hard to keep up with it. So I'm not doing as much on stage. Maybe on my social media, since I have a little more time to come up with ideas. But
It's
yeah,
gone beyond crazy now. It
oh
hasn't it?
yeah,
The
it's
last
it's
10
moving so
years.
fast. It's moving so fast, and it's so divisive, and it's a shame because really, in the end, we all probably want the same thing, like just food and shelter and a good living and healthy families. We all want that,
Yeah.
but then we yell at each other because we go, "Your way is the wrong way, and my way is the right way." And you realize that in comedy, the goal is to be funny no matter what. So even if you have a message that you're trying to get across with your comedy, you better have a punchline at the end. So that's kind of the motto. Otherwise, you're just lecturing.
Yeah. How many shows do you do a month, or how does it work? Every quarter, you have
No, it
so
just
many
varies.
places. You
Like I'm on tour a lot. So when I'm on tour, for example, that weekend when I'm coming to Sacramento, I'm doing a little run where I'll go to Seattle Thursday, then I'll go, or maybe, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, Seattle Thursday, then I go to Portland Friday, and then I come to Sacramento Saturday, and then I come back home to LA. So that's
okay?
like 3 cities close to each other. You're back. Sometimes, like this past weekend, I was in Salt Lake City at the comedy club. When you do a comedy club, you'll do, 2 shows Friday, 2 shows Saturday. Some cities you'll do Sunday as well. So then you spend a whole weekend in that city. And I'm always to the city, back home to LA. Home Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, on a plane Friday, back home Sunday. Just depends. So I'm constantly doing like that. And then once in a while, when you do tours overseas, then you're gone for a few weeks. You're Middle East, Australia, Asia, all those places.
Did
So, and then when I'm home, when I'm in LA, if I'm in LA for a long period of time, I'm just getting up at the clubs, Comedy Store, Laugh Factory, Improv, and I'll get up about 5, 6 times on a week and just work new material.
does your wife go on any of these trips with you?
If the trip is somewhere that we want to spend time, like one of the best trips we had when our kids were a little bit younger. Now they're 16 and 14, so they have their own worlds going on. But I believe maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, they were a little bit younger. I had shows in Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, and Indonesia. And so they
So
came with
you were
me, and
gone for like whole month,
it was
right?
a whole month. So we were able to all go together for a month. And over that whole month, I had 7 or 8 shows. That was it. So we had a lot of downtime. We got to go to Bali. We got to, spend some time in Singapore and see Singapore. We got to go to museums. It was a great trip. So when it's a trip like that, they come along. But like if I'm doing let's say the weekend in Salt Lake City, where I'm going to be doing 2 shows, and I'm not done with on Friday, you're done at midnight or whatever, 1, and you go to the hotel, you want to sleep to be rested for the Saturday show. There's not a lot of time to do stuff. So it just depends on what city, how many shows, and if it's worth it.
Got it. So what is next for you? Another movie, something completely unexpected, or what?
Currently, it's just more touring. I'm touring a lot. I put out a comedy special. So I have my Netflix special from 2017, which we did at the Kennedy Center. It's called Immigrant. And then I did 2 more specials after that. And the latest special was called The Birds and the Bees. And I just put it out on YouTube. So that's available for people on YouTube. And I'm getting ready to put out another special on YouTube, which is called Maz Jobrani, Small Wiener Loser. that, that title comes because this guy online started cursing me out on Twitter, and he called me a small wiener loser. So I was like, oh, that's the title of the next special.
That's a good title.
Yeah. So that'll be coming out hopefully soon. And then I just continue to tour, and I tell people, come out. The live performance is always different and fun. And that's it for now. That's what I'm focusing on.
With your live performances, do you like to tell stories or get the audience involved in your?
It's both. So you start with, you have your story that you'll be telling for the whole hour. And then throughout that, you'll talk to them a little bit and get some material from them. And then you go back to telling more stories, and then material, stories, material. And you make it almost like you're in a conversation with them. And I enjoy it that way.
Awesome. Do you have any message for the young generation or anybody who wants to follow your journey? Or if that, what would it be? I mean, I know you said go after your passion.
Don't do it. No, absolutely. Go for it. I get so excited. I'm doing a little bit now on stage where I say, where's the lawyers and the doctors, and they clap, and I go, who's not a lawyer or a doctor or engineer? And then they clap, and I go, look at that, disappointment. They're all disappointments. And I go, I embrace disappointments because I was a disappointment. And so I tell people, whatever it is, do it. Don't listen to your community. Don't listen to your parents. Don't listen to anybody. Follow your heart, and you'll be happy.
Yeah. Like a friend of mine, I just was talking to. It's like Persian families are so weird, and so in a way so weird because they want all their kids to be doctors, and if you're a disappointment, you become a lawyer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Boss, it was awesome having you with me for this hour. I really enjoyed you taking the time to talk to me. I'm really looking forward to see you in Sacramento. And if you ever get a chance, I think I send you the book. If you get a chance to read it, let me know what you think, because I'll be getting a lot of great feedback on that book. And I'm very happy to announce that Hollywood has taken that book and they're going to make it into a movie. So I wish I could memorize words or sentences better, so maybe I could play it, but I don't think I can. But
yeah. Well, you got to do a cameo. You have to do a cameo. You'll be the guy who's like guiding the. You'll be the guy guiding the plane in. Do that.
Maybe
no lines.
Maybe,
No lines. Just do that.
Just no lines. Just do that. I can do that. Yeah. So when I'm talking to my girlfriend, sometimes says sometimes it's like, not everything has to be a machine. Not everything has to be a checklist.
Yeah.
Because so we are really good at what we do because we follow a checklist over and over and over. Mm-hmm. That's what we call it. SOP, standard operating procedures. And so I kind of geared my life towards that. But now that I'm retired, I don't have to be that strict anymore because I can make some mistakes now, and nobody's gonna die.
Enjoy.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being on the show. It's going to be aired in a few weeks, and I'll send you the link, and love to see you in Sacramento, my friend.
Thank you for having me. I'll see you in Sacramento.
Absolutely. Have a good day.
Bye-bye. Bye.